boys and girls, it's Miss Rossi. Today we're going to talk about perspective to make a three-dimensional looking drawing. What you'll be needing today is a white piece of paper. There should be one in your art folder labeled box. We're going to need a pencil, an eraser, something to trace your drawing with. I have a regular sized Sharpie and a skinny Sharpie, but you can use any kind of marker, pen, or colored pencil. And we're also going to need something to color with. So I have some crayons today, but you can use markers, crayons, colored pencils, or whatever else you have at home to add color. So today we're going to draw a box that is three-dimensional. And the way that we're going to do that is by using perspective. Perspective is the angle at which someone is looking at something. So whether you are looking at it from above, like my camera is right now, whether you are looking at it from the side, from underneath it. It is how you're looking at something and the way that it looks because you're looking at it that way. Because if you're looking at something from above, it's going to look differently than if you are under it or looking at it from the side. When we think about perspective and we draw using perspective, it helps create more realistic looking images, and it helps us create more space on our paper by adding different values and shadows to create three-dimensional shapes on a 2D surface. So today our three-dimensional shape is going to be a box, and we are going to draw that on our paper so it looks like we're looking at it from the side. So almost like you're sitting on the floor and across the room in front of you is a box also sitting on the floor. So if you're looking at something like that, you're going to see that front side. You might see the top a little bit, but you're not going to see like the bottom or the left and right side. You'd only see that front and the top. So that's how we're going to draw it today. It might help you to get a box or something else similar to look at. Like if I'm looking at my crayon box from where I'm sitting, I am going to see just the front and the top. Let me change the camera angle for you so you guys can see my view. So if I am looking at my crayon box from where I'm sitting at my desk, I can just see that front section and I can see that top part, but I can't see those sides on the left and the right. So that's how we're going to be drawing our box today. So we'll be able to see that front, we'll be able to see a little bit of that top, and that's about it. And the way that we're going to start drawing our box is the same way you draw any three-dimensional shape. So I'm going to start right in the center of my paper. You can decide if you want your paper horizontal or vertical today. I'm going to keep mine horizontal. And right in the center, I'm going to start by just drawing a rectangle. So it's going to be shorter on the sides and longer in the middle. And this is that front side of our box. Your rectangle doesn't have to be perfect. Just try and get a nice big rectangle at the center of your page, leaving space on the sides and on the top and the bottom. Now we're going to draw a second rectangle in the back. So this is going to be the back of our box. We want our box to look like it's open, and we'd see that top or inside of our box. So I am going to draw a second rectangle by just drawing two smaller lines coming up from the top and connecting those with a horizontal line going across. And now to complete my box shape, I'm going to go from this top corner to this top corner. So the corner from that back panel that we just drew to the corner of the front panel. And I'm connecting those with a diagonal line. I'm going to do that on both sides, and now I can see the form of my box. I have that front side that I can look at, and now this is the inside of our box. Our box is open, and we can see that back inside wall and the side walls in there too. Now the next thing we're going to add on our box, I'm imagining like an Amazon box, so it has those big flaps on the sides. And to draw those, I'm going to start by drawing the ones that are on the left and on the right side by just doing some short diagonal lines coming out from the corners and going up. I'm going to do that on both sides. And I'm going to make the line that is closest to me at this front corner of our original box. That line that is coming out is going to be a tiny bit longer than the one in the back, because when something is closer to us, it's going to be a lot bigger than something further away. And we can see this if we just hold our hand up to our face. If your hand is close to your face, it's going to be way bigger than if you hold your hand further away from your face. So anything that's closer to us is always going to be a little bit bigger in our drawing. So these two lines are a little longer than the ones in my back. I'm going to connect those with another diagonal line. And now I have the two flaps on my box to show that my box is open. I am imagining that the flap on the back side is kind of facing down, so we're not going to see that one, but I am going to add one along the front. And we're going to draw stuff inside our box today, so I want to leave enough space where I can still see the inside. So for my front flap, I'm going to have it facing down towards me. The way that I'm going to do that is from that same corner, I'm going to do another diagonal line that is coming down towards the bottom of my paper, and I'm going to do that on both sides. And then I am going to connect those with a big line going across. And now our flaps on our box are not see-through, so I'm going to erase that line that I can still see in there from when we drew our original rectangle. And my box is basically done. The only other thing I want to add to this to make it look a little more realistic is a little bit of shading. So we want to think where our light source is coming and where our shadows are going to be on our box. So if you have a light source that is coming from the left and it is shining down over here, you want to think where that light would be hitting it and where your shadows would be. So if I am making light coming from this direction, it is going to be hitting this side of my box and casting a shadow down along this side. So to show where our light source is coming from, we're going to shade our picture a little bit very lightly with our pencil. I'm going to start by shading this front section of my box. So if the light is coming from here and I have this big flap that's hanging over it, it's going to be casting a shadow on the front of my box. So very lightly with my pencil, I'm just going to color it back and forth super, super lightly, just along that bottom edge of that flap. And I'm going to lift my pencil up as I am going further down. And this is going to create a gradient or a value scale where it is darkest at the top and lightest coming down towards the bottom. And that's going to create a nice shadow to show that that flap is kind of sticking up off of our box. And you can bring that all the way down to the bottom edge, or you can let it kind of disappear in the center. You can also use your finger or a tissue to blend that by just smudging the pencil, dragging your finger or a tissue or like a Q-tip right on top, and that will smooth it out and you won't see those harsh lines. Again, that's something you want to color in very, very lightly, and you can always do multiple layers on top to make it darker where you want it to be darker. But again, it should be darkest right along that edge of our flap and then lightest going down. So now we have the first shadow on our box. If my light is coming from over here, I will see some shadows along this inside edge of my box, that triangle shape that I see right there, because this flap is kind of blocking the light from getting there. So I am just going to, again, with my pencil, very lightly color in this section, and I'm going to make it darkest along this edge and that side edge, and lightest as it gets closer to the top, just like that. And again, you can smudge that if you want with your finger or with a tissue. And our light source is hitting this flap and this flap, so this one might be a little shadowed since it is on an angle. So I'm just going to very lightly color that one in and darken up this bottom edge. Then I can finish off the rest of the inside of my box, and I'm just going to trace this bottom flap. And this little section, this wall, is going to be a little lighter than the rest. I'm going to make it a little dark in that corner coming out to show the depth of our box, to show that there is space inside it. And then I'm just going to do that same shading along this back panel where it's darkest along the bottom and lightest going up towards the top. So I'm pressing very lightly with my pencil, just coloring back and forth. And as I get closer to the top edge there, I am lifting up on my pencil so I'm getting an even lighter line as I'm coloring that in. And I can just smudge that out with my finger to blend it together. And that looks pretty good for my box. All right, I'm pretty happy with how my box is shaded, so I'm going to leave it like that. And I'm just going to look towards the bottom. So again, if our light is coming from over here, I am going to get a shadow along this side. This part of my box would be blocking that light source. So I am just going to shade the bottom edge of this side of my box and just create a little shadow on the ground by going over that corner and getting lighter as it goes out. So I made my shadow darkest in that one corner, and then I'm letting my pencil lines get lighter as they go out into space, and I can just smudge that with my finger, and my box is done. I'm going to erase that little doodle I made for my light because I don't really need that there anymore, because now I can tell where the light is coming from by the way that I added my shadows and my highlights. Now that we have our 3D box drawn on our paper, it's time for us to think outside of the box and create something coming out of it. So you can decide what you want in and coming outside of your box. Some things that I've seen in the past, people drew like fireworks or other smaller boxes coming out of their box. Someone filled their box with little puppies like it was an adoption box. I think I am going to make my picture more abstract, and I'm going to create a big swirling ribbon coming out of my box and going off the edge of the page. But you can decide what you would like in your box and draw that. It's totally up to you what you would like to put in there. So I have this big curving line that is overlapping and twisting on itself. Maybe there's lightning coming out of your box, or an animal. Maybe you had a birthday box and it was full of balloons, and there's balloons coming out up towards the top of your page. It's totally up to you. Anything you want that is school appropriate can be coming out of your box. Now that I drew my big twisting ribbon that I have coming out of my box, I think I'm going to end up turning it into a rainbow, but I want to be able to color it in, and I need to erase this section in order to do that. So I'm going to erase this part of my box so that I can see through my picture. So whatever you're drawing inside your box, you don't want to be able to see what you shaded through it. So you just want to carefully erase the inside of that section so you can see that it's actually overlapping your box, and that will help create the illusion that it's inside. So from this top edge of my flap here, I just erased anything inside that section that I could still see. And now that I'm done drawing my box and what's coming out of it, before I start to color, I'm just going to trace it with my Sharpie. I think I'm going to use my skinny Sharpie to trace today. I am not going to trace over the top of all of my shading. I am just going to do the outline of my box and the outline of what is coming out of my box. So just this whole outline of all those lines that we drew to create our box, and then my big curvy ribbon that's coming out. Again, if you don't have a Sharpie, you can use a pen, a colored pencil, or any other kind of marker. And you want to try your best to go right on top of our pencil lines. Normally when we trace, we erase afterwards, and there are certain sections you can erase. Like I missed that top corner a little bit, and I can just hit that with my eraser. Since there's no shading over there, it's not a big deal. But down here on this flap where I kind of went off the edge a little bit, I would just want to go back in with my pencil and fill that gap in so you can't see that I didn't trace it perfectly. I'm also going to trace my big ribbon, and then I am going to color it in. I'm going to color in just the ribbon, so you're only coloring in what is coming out of your box. You want to leave your box black and white, so it just has those shadows we added with our pencil, and we're just going to color in what we drew inside our box and what is coming out of it. So once I am done tracing with my Sharpie, I'm just going to erase any pencil lines I see in this section where there's no shading, and then I am going to color it in. And that is my what's in the box picture all finished. I finished coloring in my big ribbon that was shooting out of my box using all the different colors of the rainbow. Like I said, you can draw whatever you want in and out of your box. Just make sure that you color it in once you're done. We're leaving our box black and white just with those shadows that we added. Once you're finished, you can take a photo or video of your drawing and upload it on our Canvas page. I can't wait to see the crazy things you guys add to your box drawings. Try your best, have fun, and get creative. I'll see you soon. Bye!